This means that it's up to you to really figure out, is there a specific story that you want to tell? Is there a specific trait about yourself that you want to make sure that you show to the admissions office? What is it exactly that you're trying to get across? A really critical question that you can start asking yourself is, what makes you happy to write? If there's a story or a quality or a trait that you think that you can really talk about that makes you really proud and really happy to write, that means that it's probably a really good sign that this is something that the admissions office should see about you. And so once you start getting into this general realm, then there's this feeling of like, okay, now there's so much that I could write about. How do you really focus it back down to the 650 word limit and make sure that, again, at the end of the day, this is very uniquely your own essay? Part 2, writing the draft. So once you figure out what it is that you want to say, the question is, how do you actually go about writing it? A big thing that you're going to have to think about is structure. So unlike things that you may have written for class before, you really want to try to break out of that 5-paragraph essay structure where you have the introduction, the conclusion, and 3 body paragraphs that match 1-to-1 with your thesis. In this case, you want to be a little bit more freeform, and to help encourage this sort of freeform writing, there are a bunch of different tools, including, but definitely not limited to, things like word webs, where you start with one word and essentially just free associate a bunch of different ideas of words that are really like in any way just related to the word that you, or the topic that you have at hand. Another thing that you could possibly do, which is something that I actually had chosen to do myself, is essentially just get down all the ideas that I could potentially have about this idea or this topic onto paper, just so that I could come back later and reference it again, and potentially reiterate and maybe even revise it to the point where it'd be good enough to actually submit. Something that I have always really stressed when I'm thinking about these sort of essays is that you have to write the bad drafts first before you can get to anything good. Everything that's online, for example, none of those started out the way that they are when you see them online as the accepted essays, blah, blah, blah. So another thing that you want to think about is just your voice. You just want to make sure that your essay sounds really authentic to who you are, that this is a story that you can only tell in your way. Your admissions officer should be able to tell what kind of person you are and how you like to approach the world in a greater sense.